Hanukkah, we should be zochet nisim v'niflaot yeshuot. There's a famous question. Bezrat Hashem will speak about Hanukkah. We'll tie it into the parasha with Siyata Dishmaya. That's always, there's a rule, there's a principle on whatever week, whatever parasha a Yom Tov falls out on, to find a connection, to find a remes, to find a hint in that week's parasha. So I wanted to say this at the end of the Shul, but I started out to start with something beautiful. This week's parasha Vayeshev, every single pasuk starts with the same letter. What letter does every single pasuk begin with? So Vayeshev, what letter does every single pasuk? Every single pasuk begins with the same letter. The letter Vav. If you read, I'll challenge you, look in the Humash, look in the parasha, try to find every single pasuk begins with the letter Vav. What do you mean Toldot? Every single pasuk begins with the letter Vav in this week's parasha. Why? What's happening? It's a catastrophic parasha. It's a very difficult parasha. And this went wrong, and that went wrong, and this went wrong, and that went wrong. The brothers are not getting along with Yosef. They're jealous of Yosef. They hate Yosef. They eventually sell Yosef. They tell their father that he was eaten alive by a wild animal. Yaakov Avinu goes into a deep mourning, a deep depression. Then the brothers turn against Yehuda. Why do they turn against Yehuda? Because Yehuda, this was your idea, and look at the way our father's taking it. So Yehuda has to leave the family. Yehuda goes to build a family. He gets into his own trouble. Yosef gets sold down to Egypt. He gets into more trouble. You read the parasha, it's trouble after trouble, and this happened and that happened. It just keeps on getting worse. However, there's 8 pesukim that doesn't begin with the letter Vav. We said that every single pasuk begins with the letter Vav. There's actually 8 pesukim in this week's parasha that don't begin with the letter Vav. What are those 8 pesukim? Those are the Nerot Hanukkah. That's the Or of Mashiach. As much as everything is going wrong in this week's parasha, only next week we start to see how things slowly come together. But if you just take this week's parasha from the beginning till the end, everything is falling apart. The Jewish people in their infancy were falling apart at the seams. It doesn't seem that anything good's going to come out. But Hashem says, look at the 8 pesukim that don't have the letter Vav. That's the 8 Nerot Hanukkah. God is already preparing the Or. He's already preparing the light. The Or from Mashiach, behind the scenes and everything that's quote unquote going wrong, Hashem's going to make everything right. That's the Nerot, that's the Or of Hanukkah, in those 8 pesukim that don't begin with the letter Vav. The most famous question on Hanukkah. What's the most famous question? The question of the Bet Yosef. Entire Sfarim have been written on this question. There's hundreds of answers to this question. That if there was enough oil to last at least one night, why do we celebrate Hanukkah as an 8-day festival? What should we celebrate Hanukkah as? 7-day festival. The first night wasn't a miracle. There was enough oil to last one night. So hundreds of answers are given. One answer suggested is that the actually finding of the Pach Shemen, the finding of the oil, that in itself is a miracle. So that's why we celebrate 8 nights. Rav Galinsky asks, he poses the following. He points out the following. Why did they have to light the menorah at all? It already had been decades that the menorah had not been lit. The Greeks had taken over the Bet HaMikdash. They had taken over the temple. So it had already been a long time, decades, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even it had been many, many years since the menorah had been lit. Now they knew that it would take them at least 7 days to produce oil. That's tahor. So why not wait till you can do it properly? Why are you going to light for one night, run out of oil, not light for another, and then have to wait 7 nights to continue to light it properly? If anyways the menorah had not been lit in decades, just wait another week. Make enough kosher oil, make enough oil that's pure, and now you can light it every night. Why was it so important that they light the Nerot Chanukah for at least one night? Then there'll be another gap of 7 days because they didn't know that the miracle was going to happen. They would have to wait another 7 days and then continue lighting it. Just wait till you have enough oil and then you can light it every night without a problem. Why is it that the Kohanim insisted that they at least light the first night and that they would have to wait 7 days? At the time they didn't know that there was a miracle, that a miracle was going to happen. So Rav Galinsky explains that this demonstrates mitzvah haba liyatcha, the famous principle, mitzvah haba liyatcha, al tahmitzena. Don't allow a mitzvah to go stale. Don't procrastinate. You have a mitzvah comes your way, don't make heshbonot. Don't make calculations. I'll wait, and I'll do it this way, and I'll do it that way. Mitzvah haba liyatcha. A mitzvah comes by you. You have the opportunity to do a mitzvah. What were the Kohanim going to do? Light the menorah for one night, and then not light it for seven nights or so? Yes. Do it that way. Mitzvah haba liyatcha. If a mitzvah comes your way, al tachmitzena. Don't let it grow stale. And Rav Galinsky wants to say that is bischut dat, in that merit that they took the initiative, that even though the menorah had not been lit already for decades, for dozens of years, but this that took the initiative says we're going to light anyways, even though there's going to be a gap of another 7 days, in the zechut of that initiative, in the zechut of that dedication, that's why the mitzvah happened. That's why Hashem performed the miracle, because they demonstrated how badly they wanted to do the mitzvah. There's a fascinating question dealt with the Radbaz. The Radbaz, I don't know if this actually happened or this is a theoretical question that the Radbaz deals with and he gives an answer. If you have a Jew that's in jail, a Jew is in jail, and he gets permission to take 1 day off a year. He's not able to keep Torah and Mitzvot properly in jail, and he convinced the warden, he convinced his captors to let him out for 1 day. Which day should he choose? Maybe should he choose the first Shabbat? Should he choose Yom Kippur? Should he choose Purim? Purim, we have so many mitzvot. We have Mikra Megillah twice, Matanot La'evyonim, Mishloach Manot, the Seudah, drinking. Which day of the year? Fascinating question by the Radbaz. Which day of the year? That if a person can only keep, he's in jail the entire year, but he's given 1 day off, which day should he choose? Oh.
Exactly.
Okay, so not Yom Kippur, not Yom Kippur.
Sounds like a SAT fake question.
So the Radbaz gives the following question. He gives the following answer. The first mitzvah that comes his way that he can't perform properly in jail, that day he should take off. Don't wait for Yom Kippur, don't wait for Purim, don't wait for Pesach, don't wait for Chanukah. The first mitzvah that comes your way that you're unable to keep it in jail properly, you're unable to keep it in captivity, take that day off to do the mitzvah. Why? Mitzvah haba liyatcha. When a mitzvah comes your way, don't let it grow stale. That's the idea of the Nerot Hanukkah. That's the idea of what the Hashmona'im did. They could have waited. Let's wait another week. We'll light the menorah properly, and we'll be able to light it consistently every single night. Why light it one night, then leave a gap of 7 days, then continue to light it? Because you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah. Don't make heshbonot. Don't make calculations. Just do the mitzvah. If you go towards the end of this week's parasha, let's go towards the end of this week's parasha. What happened at the end of this week's parasha? Yosef is sold down to Egypt. He ends up in the house of Potiphar and Potipharah, and then he ends up in jail. And there he's wallowing in jail. And who's also thrown into jail?
What's the name of parasha this week?
Parashat Vayeshev. Parashat Vayeshev.
What is it about?
Oh, there's a lot. Give me. So there Yosef is in jail. And who else is thrown in jail? Sarah Mashkim, Sarah Ofim. The butler and the baker are thrown in jail. So now these are Yosef's, these are the roommates of Yosef now. This is who he's in jail with. He's in jail with the butler and he's in jail with the baker. Then all of a sudden, one day, by halom shnehem, one morning, one night they dreamt, ish halomo belayla ehad, ish kepitron halomo, hamashkeh ve'alfeh asher lemelech Mitzrayim asher asrin bebet hasohar. Vayavo alehem Yosef baboker, vayar otam v'hineh zo'afim. Yosef gets up in the morning and he sees that they're not in the best mood, that something is wrong. He's able to see on the face of the butler and he's able to see on the face of the baker that something is amiss, something's bothering them. Vayishal et seriseh paro asher ito bebishmar bet adonav lemor, madua penechem ra'im hayom. Why do you look so bad? Why do you look so terrible? Why are you in a bad mood? Vayomru elav halom halamnu upoter en oto. We both dreamt a dream and we don't have an explanation, we don't have an interpretation. Vayomer alehem Yosef halo lelokim pitronim saperuna li. Interpretations of dream belong to God. Tell me the interpretation and I will do my best to bring you the word of God. So the Sarah Mashkim goes first. What does the Sarah Mashkim tell Yosef? The Sarah Mashkim tells him, I had a dream that I was standing by a cluster of grapes. I was standing by a grapevine and there was clusters of grapes and I was squeezing wine. I was squeezing grape juice into the cup of Paro. So what does Yosef tell the Sarah Mashkim? This is a good dream. This is positive. In 3 days' time, you're going to be returned to your post. Then comes the Sarah Tabachim. Then comes the baker. He says, I also had a dream. He says, wow, he gave him such a beautiful, such a good interpretation. I also had a dream. Why don't I tell this individual? So he starts telling him the dream that he had 3 baskets on top of his head. In each basket, there were baked goods. And the birds were coming and they were eating from the basket. So Yosef tells him, I'm sorry to inform you, but that means in 3 days, you're going to be executed, you're going to be sentenced to death, and they're going to hang you. These are the 2 dreams, and these are the two interpretations. If you take a moment and you study the dreams don't make sense. Let's take the dream of the butler. What does the butler tell Yosef? The butler tells Yosef that I'm squeezing grapes into a cup, koshel paro, in order to serve paro. What's the job of a butler? Is the job of a butler to make wine, to make grape juice, or to serve wine? To serve. His job is to serve. He goes down to the wine cellar, he picks up a nice, I'm not a wine connoisseur, a nice Chardonnay, a nice Cabernet, he finds out what mood is the king in, he pairs it together with the meal. That's the job of the butler. The job of the butler is not to squeeze grapes. He's not a winemaker, he's not a farmer, he's a butler. He serves the wine, he doesn't make the wine, he buys it ready. What about the baker? If anyone is making anything, it's the baker. The baker's the one. If anyone should have a dream about making anything, it's not the butler having a dream of squeezing grapes. That's not the butler's job. The baker should be having a dream of baking the baked goods, baking the bread, and giving it to Paro. But if you look at the dreams, it's the opposite. The butler, whose job is to serve wine but not to make wine, he's making wine and serving wine. The baker's job, who it is to bake, is not baking anything. It's already there ready on his head. So the dreams don't make sense. The dreams are actually the opposite, have to be the opposite. So what's the interpretation? So Yosef, he hears the dream. By the way, I'll tell you, remember this for Pesach. What's one of the sources for the Arba Kosot? For the 4 cups, so it's one of the sources. You're going to say it has to do with the leshonot, with the expressions of Geulah, ve'yatzati, ve'lakavti, ve'ga'alti, ve'heveti. I mean, there's really 5 leshonot, but we take 4 leshonot. The source for the hint to the 4 cups of wine is in our parasha. The butler said kos shel paro 4 times in the conversation between the butler and Yosef. It says kos shel paro 4 times. If I'm not mistaken, the Gemara or Tosfot understands this as an allusion to the Arba Kosot. Bezrat Hashem, it's a Devar Torah for Pesach. In any case, Yosef hears the dream of the butler. He says, wow, here's a real dedicated individual. Here's a very loyal individual. His job is just to serve Paro. But in his dream, he's squeezing the grapes, he's making the wine, he's making the grape juice, he's squeezing it into the cup, and he's going to serve Paro. This person is loyal. This person is a soldier. This person belongs back in his place in the king, in the palace, serving the king right by the king. Because it's really not his job to make the wine, but in any case, he's having a dream about making wine and serving wine. This is truly a loyal person, somebody who burns with a desire to serve his king, to serve his master. His role is to be put back in the palace, and that's the way Yosef interpreted the dream. But for the baker, and you could also ask a question, a dream follows its interpretation. We're Sephardic, we're very superstitious like, right? A dream follows, famous cloud, famous Yesod. A dream follows its interpretation. Why is Yosef giving a bad interpretation? Is Yosef condemning this man to death? Is Yosef, through interpreting the dream in a negative light, is he condemning? Is he being judge, jury, and executioner? If we go with the principle, what do we say when we have a dream? We always say Halom Tov, Halom Shalom. We always try to give it a positive spin, a positive interpretation, because the dream goes after the interpretation. Yosef knew that. Even though he knew that, he gives the butler a good interpretation, he gives the baker a negative interpretation. He's the one that you could say you could almost say that he sentenced the baker to death. What's Yosef doing? Trying to kill an innocent man here? You're trying to have somebody killed? So what did Yosef see in the dream of the baker? What did we say? We said that the dreams don't make sense. It's the baker's job not just to serve, to be holding the baked goods. It's the baker's job to bake. But what does he see in his dream? The baker's not baking. It's already baked, and where are the baked goods? On his head. What are you doing exposing? You're the royal baker. You're the baker of the king, and you're putting his food on your head. You're exposing it to the elements. Very negligent. It's very wrong. Very indifferent. It's very careless what the baker's doing. You know what Yosef saw in the baker's dream? He saw somebody that had lost his drive to serve the king. He's putting the bread on his head, and the birds are coming to eat it. That's not where the bread belongs. If you're holding, for example, you make svench this Chanukah, what do you do with the svench? No, it's like having gold. You ever saw a Moroccan woman holding svench? It's like gold. Mamash like gold. It's pure. You have to protect it till you eat it. Same thing. What are you doing what is it doing on top of your head? What is it doing exposed to the elements? Look, the birds are coming to eat it. He saw a rebel here. He saw somebody who lost that drive, who lost that passion, who lost that dedication. So it's not that Yosef sentenced him to death. It's that this person, that's where he belonged. He did not belong back in the palace of the king. He did not belong back serving Paro. He didn't want to serve Paro. He didn't have that drive. He didn't have that passion. That's what we're saying by the Nerot Chanukah. When the Kohanim came, when the Hashmonaim came, and they lit that first night, and we asked, why are you lighting? Because you're not going to be able to light for another 7 nights. Just wait. Because they were so dedicated or so driven, it didn't matter that they only had oil for 1 night, and it would take them 7 days to get more oil. They wanted to do the mitzvah now. They were passionate. They were driven. We're going to do the mitzvah. What will be, will be. Let's connect this further with Chanukah. Which creature is Yavan? Yavan was the enemy on Hanukkah. They're the villain. Which creature is Yavan compared to? I'm going to tell you something incredible now.
Something Greek.
Not a go. It's actually compared to two creatures. One is a rabbit.
And the fox, no?
No, I don't think so. Maybe it is. I didn't see that. One is a rabbit, and the second is a scorpion.
Oh.
The Greek Empire is compared to a scorpion.
Wow.
Now, a scorpion is amongst those creatures that sting. A bee stings, a wasp stings, and a scorpion also stings. But the Chachamim tell us something incredible about the sting of a scorpion. How is the sting of a scorpion different than the sting of a bee, for example? What happens?
It can kill.
It can kill. Actually, you know what? By the way, I did my own research. Not so much. It's treatable. It's very treatable. It's very painful. What happens if a person gets a bee sting? Do you put a hot compress or do you put a cold compress? You put a cold compress. If a person gets a bee sting, you put a cold compress. What happens if a person gets a wasp sting? Same thing. You put a cold compress. Now, logic would dictate that if a person gets stung by a scorpion, what do? You put a cold compress. Except if you look in medical literature, the Chachamim say this, and I did my own research. If you look in medical literature, the venom of a scorpion is different. The venom, the sting of a scorpion is different than a bee and different than a wasp. While if a person, God forbid, gets stung by a bee or gets stung by a wasp, you have to put a cold compress. The venom of a scorpion can lead to hypothermia. According to one study, within 48 hours, they did a study of people who got stung by a scorpion. All of those who got stung got hypothermia within 48 hours. The sting of the scorpion is different, that it puts a chill into the body. You don't put a cold compress, put a hot compress. Because within 48 hours it could lead to hypothermia. The sting of a scorpion is different than the sting of a bee or a wasp. What does this have to do with Hanukkah? We said that the Yevanim, the Greeks, they are compared to a scorpion. Why a scorpion? Because the same way, what did the Yevanim do? What did the Greeks do? They put a chill in our Avodat Hashem. They cooled us off. They weren't looking to kill us. They weren't looking to commit genocide. You know what the Yevanim were doing? You know what they did? They made us indifferent. They made us cold to Torah or mitzvot. We lost that burning desire. We lost that drive. We became very removed, very distant from Hashem. Specifically Yavan, specifically Greece is compared to a scorpion. The same way a scorpion with its sting, it puts a chill in the body. Unlike the sting of a bee and a wasp, so too Yavan. They put a chill in Am Yisrael. We became very indifferent, very cold to God. So that's why. So what do we need to do? We need to light a flame. We need to light the Nerot Chanukah. We need that fire. On Rosh Hashanah, we blow the shofar the first and the second day. Yeah? Yeah. On Purim, we read the Megillah at night and in the morning. Yeah. On Sukkot, when we take the Arba Minim, when the men take the Arba Minim, is it the same Arba Minim each day of Sukkot? Is there a difference between the blowing of the shofar the first day of Rosh Hashanah and the second day of Rosh Hashanah? No. Is there a difference between Mikra Megillah at night and in the morning? No, it's the same Megillah, same story, nothing changed. Is there a difference in the Arba Minim, the four species, day to day on Sukkot? No. Listen to this chidush. The Nerot Chanukah is the only repetitive mitzvah, a mitzvah that we repeat like Tekiyat Shofar, Arba Minim, Mikra Megillah. It's the only repetitive mitzvah that changes every day. Tekiyat Shofar doesn't change from the first day to the second day. It's the same halachot, it's the same Tekiyat Shofar. But on Chanukah, how many candles do you light the first day? One. How many candles do you light the second night? How many candles the third night? 3. The mitzvah changes every day. Every day the mitzvah is changing. So now the question is, why is this mitzvah different than all the other repetitive mitzvot? Now you understand why I was highlighting it. The Megillah we read the night of Purim is the same Megillah we read the next day. The Tekiyat Shofar of the first day of Rosh Hashanah is the same Tekiyat Shofar as the second day. The Arba Minim is the same each day of Sukkot. Except when it comes to Chanukah, the mitzvah is changing every single day. Why is it different on Chanukah? Or why is it like that on Chanukah?
It's also only at night when it's darkness. You don't have it during the day.
Because we count it as a night.
Okay, but my question is, my point is, why is it's changing every day? Even I could tell you, Mikar Adin, by the letter of the law, if you light one candle every night, you fulfill the mitzvah by the letter of the law. So, huh?
We're not going to come up with the answer.
So once again, going along the lines of what we're discussing in the shiur, what are we saying? What happened? What happened by the Yevanim? We became very indifferent, very cold. What are we coming to do on Chanukah?
So we can eat donuts every night.
No, you could do that with one candle also.
8 days, 1 hour.
No, but you can light, or I'll ask it differently.
8 times you can eat donuts and these and that.
No, wait.
Why every day you're adding one?
Why are we adding one? No, but I take your answer seriously. Or maybe light. I have a suggestion.
Because I cannot go straight.
Okay, very good. Or why not light 8 candles each night? Just like in the bedtime, the light 8 candles each night.
The whole menorah every night?
Correct. So I'm saying, why don't we do the same thing?
Because I think it's to bring more the mitzvah, it's to bring it more highly every night and not to light it in one time.
Excellent.
So every
Excellent.
night it will be...
We're changing, the mitzvah is changing, because if we were lacking, if we were indifferent, if we were cold, if we lost that passion, that desire, that fire, the relationship lost its fire between us and Hashem. So comes Chanukah, what happens? You change it up a little. You bring that freshness. Tonight is 1, tomorrow's 2, then it's 3, and we're building it up. We're rekindling. It's not just the same mitzvah each night. The mitzvah changes. The mitzvah is different each night. Why? Because we need a little change. We need a little freshness. We need to rededicate ourselves to Hashem. That's why specifically by Chanukah.
Okay, so now each day you are lighting every day it's a mitzvah, it's changed by a mitzvah, right?
It's a different mitzvah each night.
Mitzvah each night.
So it is, right.
Why don't you say every night, because you change a mitzvah, you don't say Shehechiyanu.
Excellent. You're saying very good. So it's not 100% different. The mitzvah is changing every night, but it's still Hadlakat Nerot Hanukkah. It still falls under it. I hear the question. It's a fair, according to what we're saying, it's a good question, but it's not completely different. It's not in a different realm. So we see this entire idea, we see this common thread that's running through, that Chanukah is all about rekindling that passion. It's all about rekindling that fire. It's all about bringing light into the darkness. Where's the ideal place? Where's the ideal place to place the Nerot Chanukah? Outside where?
Right side. Against
right or left?
Mezuzah.
No, so the mezuzah is on the right.
And the left.
And the left is on the Nerot Chanukah. Do you know why? So we should be surrounded by mitzvot. But you want the deeper idea? The mezuzah on your door. It protects you in the house. It's not a trick question. Or it protects you out of the house.
It's both.
Ladies, work with me. The mezuzah. The mezuzah protects you where? It protects you in the house. But on Chanukah, you know what we do? We have what's the idea of the mezuzah on the right and the Nerot Chanukah on the left? Is that when you walk into your house, how you're being protected by the mezuzah. When you walk out of your house, the Nerot Chanukah are protecting you out in the street. The Nerot Chanukah, the light, that is protecting you even more. On Chanukah, do you realize we're in all the wrong places on Chanukah? What do I mean?
But I light them outside.
By the courtyard.
No, on the top of the...
They said that within that, where, if you realize on Chanukah, we're in all the wrong places. We have the mezuzah on the right, and we have the Nerot Chanukah on the left. In Judaism, what do we stress? The left or the right? We stress the right. We stress the right. On Chanukah, there's a concept of Pirsumei Nisa. We publicize the mitzvah. What did Bilam say about Am Yisrael? Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. We're a very modest, low-key people. We emphasize on being modest, on being low-key, on being quiet. We rarely, we're supposed to publicize anything. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. All of a sudden, Chanukah, we're publicizing, we're showing off on Chanukah. We're not the nation that shows off. We're the nation that keeps a low profile, that keeps that very modest, very tsanua. And then where ideally should you put the Nerot Chanukah? Approximately 10 tefachim. Approximately within 10 tefachim from the floor. But the Gemara says HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't go under 10 tefachim. So if you take a moment and you analyze the mitzvot of Chanukah, if you analyze the dimensions, if you analyze the directions, we're in all the wrong places. We're on the left when we stress the right. We talk about being outside when we are modest people that are inside people. We go below tefachim when HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't go below tefachim. We're in all the wrong places on Chanukah. So what's happening? So the Chachamim explain, because Chanukah, if a person has that chill, if a person is cold and indifferent, and he's very distant, very removed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, comes Chanukah, Hashem says, I'll find you even if you're in all the wrong places. Even if you're not on the right and on the left, I will come to the left side. Even I will go below 10 tefachim. We are people that stress the inside, the internal modesty, quiet. I will go outside. The Nerot Chanukah are so powerful. Even if a person finds himself in all the wrong places, he's completely removed, completely indifferent, completely cold to the Borei Olam, comes Hashem and says, the Nerot Chanukah, the lights of Chanukah will find you, I will find you, and I will connect with you, and I will rekindle that fire. I will rekindle that passion, even if you're in all the wrong places. That's the power. That's the idea of the Nerot Chanukah, of being on the left, of projecting to the outside, and being below 10 tefachim. There's, throughout Chanukah, the minhag is that throughout the 8 days, we read the parasha of the Nesi'im, the parasha of the princes. Why? When each prince of Am Yisrael brought a korban, brought a sacrifice. So it's not clear what exactly is the connection. Yes, that was the Chanukat of the Mishkan in the desert, and we also had the Chanukah, and they rededicated the Bet HaMikdash, the second temple, but it's not exactly clear what the connection is. So the Chachamim explain that really the Chanukat of the Mishkan should have been in the month of Kislev. It should have been by Chaf Hei Kislev, but it was pushed off until the month of Nisan. So God and the Nesi'im, those korbanot, those sacrifices that the Nesi'im brought, they were ready to bring them the month of Kislev, and they were pushed off to the month of Nisan to before Pesach. So that's the connection between Chanukah, between Chaf Hei Kislev. That's the connection between the Nesi'im and Chanukah. That everything that happened in the month of Nisan, this dedication of the Mishkan that happened in the month of Nisan, was really supposed to happen in the month of Kislev. It was pushed off to the month of Nisan. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the month of Kislev the miracle of the miracle of Chanukah. Now we know by the Nesi'im, all of a sudden on Chanukah we're talking about the Nesi'im. Every day of Chanukah we read from the parasha of the Nesi'im in the morning. What do we know about the Nesi'im? That when they made that collection to build the Mishkan, what did the Nesi'im say? The Nesi'im said, we're not going to donate, we're not going to give. After all of Am Yisrael gives, whatever they don't give, whatever is lacking, we'll donate. What ended up happening? Am Yisrael gave so much. Doesn't happen by every fundraiser, but this fundraiser it happened. Did you ever have a Jewish organization or an institution called? No, we have enough money, we're good. But it happened in the desert. It happened in the desert that this fundraiser was the first. It was the first fundraiser. It was the first fundraiser in the history of Klal Yisrael. That after 2 days, Moshe Rabbeinu said, enough. We have enough money. And all of a sudden the Nesi'im, they didn't give anything. And the Torah calls them out for it. They're missing a letter in their name. Even though they had the best of intentions, but where did it come from? There's an entire Rashi. Everyone goes to town on the Nesi'im. It didn't come from a good place. When it comes to mitzvot, mitzvah haba leyadcha, Al tachmitzena. Don't let it grow stale. Don't miss the opportunity. Whatever cheshbonot, whatever calculations you want to make. Mitzvah haba liyadcha al tachmitzena. They are held responsible. They had the best of intentions. We'll fill in the gaps. We'll fill in whatever Am Yisrael doesn't donate. They had the best of intentions, but still, there's a letter missing from their name. Because they didn't have enough alacrity, enough dedication. They weren't burning. If they were truly burning with the right passion and the right desire to serve Hashem, they would have given on time. And they corrected this by that when they inaugurated the Mishkan, each Nasi on his own, each prince on his own. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't command them. Each one, as soon as there was the inauguration of the Mishkan, they brought on their own volition, without being commanded. Each one brought korbanot. They came with their own initiative, correcting what they did when initially they didn't offer anything, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to do a miracle and give them the shoham stone that fell in their man. But now, when it came to the actual Chanukat Mishkan, they were the first to show up, bringing korbanot every day. That's the idea of Chanukah. Be the first to show up. Be the one to do the mitzvah. Bring the one to don't make calculations. Don't make cheshbonot. The Chidushei Harim says, he explains, it says in the Gemara, Ner Chanukah, where until mitzvat Ner Chanukah, ad shetichle regel min hashuk. What does this line mean? Mitzvat Ner Chanukah ad shetichle regel min hashuk. Then until when is the mitzvah of Nerot Chanukah? Until the marketplace is empty. Until there's nobody left in the marketplace. Comes the Chidushei Harim and he explains, Mitzvah Ner Chanukah, asher tichle hergel. What's the segula? What's the idea of Mitzvah Ner Chanukah? It's supposed to inspire a person that don't do things out of habit, don't do things habitually. Have that freshness, have that desire, have that passion for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't read it Mitzvah Ner Chanukah. When do we do it? Until when is Mitzvah Ner Chanukah? Until there's nobody left in the marketplace. Rather read it Asher Tichle Hergel Min Hashuk. Until you're no longer the mitzvah, the ner Chanukah, the nerot Chanukah, the candles of Chanukah, the fire of Chanukah, the flames of Chanukah is supposed to inspire a person to the point that he's no longer doing things habitually. He's no longer indifferent. He's no longer cold. He's plugged in. He's dedicated. He has this burning passion, this burning desire for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says by Reuven, let's make another connection to this week's parasha. It says by Reuven, it says in Shir Hashirim, Hadudaim natnu reach ve'al petachenu kol megadim. What's Hadudaim natnu reach? That the baskets, I believe it's referring to figs, that the baskets were giving off a pleasant odor. Ve'al petachenu, and then on our doorstep, there's all kinds of these succulent fruits. Comes the Chachamim and explain, what's Hadudaim natnu reach? What these baskets are giving off this pleasant odor, that's Reuven. Ve'al petachenu kol megadim, and on our doorway you have all these choicest fruits. That's the Nerot Chanukah. What does it mean that half the pasuk is talking about Reuven and half the pasuk is talking about Nerot Chanukah? What's the connection between Reuven and the Nerot Chanukah? Is that Reuven Reuven was the first person to do teshuvah. And Reuven, what was he doing teshuvah for? What was the so to speak the sin of Reuven? What was the sin of Reuven? Is that he moved the bed of Yaakov Avinu into the tent of his mother. This happened last week, that after Rachel Imenu passed away, Yaakov took his bed and he put it in the tent of Bilhah, the maidservant of Rachel. Comes Reuven and he felt that was an affront to his mother Leah, so he took the bed out and he put it in his mother's tent. So Reuven was doing teshuvah. Rashi brings in this week's parasha, Reuven was doing teshuvah. Question is, what exactly was the sin of Reuven? Where was the sin over here? What sin did Reuven do? There was no really, you could say it was incorrect. He didn't act properly, but there wasn't, you can't really say there was a specific sin. So why is it that Reuven was doing so much teshuvah for this? Is because he was so afraid that this sin, this action, even if it wasn't terrible, but this action could put a chill, could distance him from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he didn't want anything to get in between and Hashem, so he made sure to do teshuvah continuously. He didn't want that scorpion bite. He didn't want that scorpion sting. He didn't want that coldness, that numbness, that indifference between him and Hashem that a sin could bring. Therefore, he was extremely careful. Even if technically you could explain he was standing up for his mother's honor. There's no sin over here. What exactly is the sin, or what was so terrible? But Reuven wanted to make sure that there was no numbness or indifference or coldness, or this sin cannot become something worse, cannot make him disconnected from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, he was so careful to do teshuvah. And that's what the Nerot Chanukah is. The Nerot Chanukah is to rekindle, to make sure we still have that passion, that fire, that connection between us and Hashem. I want to transition now.
Excuse me, how about the rabbit that you told?
Oh, that's a different shiur. That's a different shiur. I want to transition a bit that we can fully appreciate these days. They are very mesugal. We say, what's one of the brachot that we say on the first night? Let's talk about the first night. We say lehadlik ner Hanukkah. We say she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh, and we say shechianu. And then each subsequent night we say lehadlik ner Hanukkah, and we say she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. Oh, I see that's everyone's favorite bracha now. Okay, so let's discuss this bracha first. You came back in at just the right time. So the second bracha is the bracha, the two brachot that we say each night. The first of the two brachot is she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. What does bayamim hahem mean? In those days, bazman hazeh, in our time. Do we really need that? But do we need the bracha to say that?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. If the bracha would be read as follows: Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem. And if the bracha would end there, would it be a correct bracha? Would it be a correct blessing?
Yes.
It would be correct. So what does it mean, bayamim hahem, in those days? What does it have to stress?
This time.
What does it mean in this time?
We want everything to be up nowadays.
Excellent. So bayamim hahem means it happened in those times. Bazman hazeh, but first, you'll excuse me for boring this phrase. You hear the phrase in the song, "Tis the season." This is the season of miracles. What it means, this is the season of miracles. It's not just an expression. It is the season. Bayamim hahem. The miracles happen in those days. Bazman hazeh, in this season. What does it mean that the miracles happen in those days, in this season? So to really open this up, when were the Chachamim kovea? Listen to this question and then listen to the answer. When did the Chachamim institute Chanukah as an official holiday? They lit the menorah the first night, correct? Then it lasted for 7 days, correct? Mm-hmm. So a miracle happened. When did they institute Chanukah? When did they convene and say, okay, Rabotai, we're introducing a new holiday? Was it the day after Chanukah? Or was it the next year, at the exact same time that they instituted the holiday?
The next year.
So they waited a year, meaning they didn't...
Because usually something happens and then the next year is still celebrating it.
No, it was.
So then I can say, wait, if they're anyways going to institute it, after Chanukah, let the Jewish people know, okay, we just experienced a miracle. Next year, mark your calendar, we're going to have an 8-day holiday. They didn't do it, right? So which one did they do? Did they do it that after the 8 days of Chanukah, immediately they let everyone know? It says, okay, next year we're going to have an 8-day holiday? Or did they wait a year and then tell everybody right before Chanukah?
Right after the 8 days.
Okay.
What happened?
So that would make sense. That is the logical answer. that immediately after the miracle, the Chachamim say, okay, we just experienced a tremendous miracle. We're going to institute this as a holiday. So going forward in the Jewish calendar, mark your calendars, we now have a holiday in the middle of the winter. But that's not what happened. The 8 days of Hanukkah passed, and the Chachamim did not institute a holiday. They didn't tell anyone to mark their calendars. As they were getting closer to the anniversary of this miracle the next year, that's when they informed Klal Yisrael, oh, by the way, remember what happened last year? We decided we're instituting a Chag. Why did they do it that way? Just tell everyone the year before. We can all prepare. We can all mark our calendars. Oh, sorry. What did you say? Excuse me. What did you say? To realize what? What, they didn't realize it the year before?
It's going to become stale after a year.
Don't try. Don't freeze the Svench from year to year. Yeah.
They were looking for oil again.
No, we can.
They want it to
like
be fresh.
when
I know those
Jews. A year when it comes to a point that 1 year, and then after that they see that the miracle was there.
Okay.
And they brought it back in the next year to not to forget what happened there.
So
to remind us.
No problem, but so then tell me why you waiting? Why you not you? Why you last minute person? Tell me the year before. I'm a very organized person. I need to have my calendar marked. Tell me from the year before.
Maybe with time they became colder.
No, maybe the time of the calendar. Maybe the time of the calendar that they wanted to figure out it was the first day or the last day. Maybe the last day of the...
So the answer is because not for every miracle do we make a holiday. If you're going to ask me, Rabbi, what's the rules of making a holiday for the Jewish people? Is that the Chachamim api Ruach HaKodesh, through divine inspiration, they can realize... I say this a lot. It's from one of my famous Divrei Torah. I said this by Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to say it again now. Time is not linear. Time is circular. What does it mean that time is circular? Then when they were coming back into this season, Bayami Mahem Bazman Hazeh, they realized through Ruach HaKodesh, the same Shefa that came into the world the year before, there's an illumination from heaven that's coming into the world that came into the world last year, and they realized that this is a special time. This wasn't a one-time event. That the miracles that happened last year, that happened the year before, that came from Shamayim, that hashpa'ah, that illumination, that shefa, that spiritual energy is coming back into the world. So then they realized, oh, this is a special time. This wasn't a one-time thing. Bayamim hahem, it happened in those days, bazman hazeh, but this is the season. Just like, and I said this by Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Why is Yom Kippur on Yom Kippur? Why is Yom Kippur the 10th of Tishrei? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgave Am Yisrael for the golden calf that day. That shefa, that spiritual energy comes back into the world every year on Yud Tishrei, on Yom Kippur. Same thing by Chanukah. That spiritual energy of miracles, of Nisim, of Lemala Mina Teva, they realize, it's not a one-time thing. Through Ruach HaKodesh, they realize that spiritual light is coming back into the world. So they realize they have to be kovea, they have to institute a holiday. That's what it means. Bayamim ahem, bazman hazeh. It happened in those days, but this is the season of miracles. This is the season. That spiritual energy is coming back into the world. So when we talk about segulot, when we talk about the power of Chanukah, that's the energy that's coming into the world. That's what the Ramchal writes. Imagine a well that's covered, that's locked, and then when you come back into the season, God opens it up. So this energy, this spiritual energy of miracles, God opens it up for 8 days in this season. Bayamim ahem, bazman hazeh. Let's take this idea further. Famous Gemara. Rabbi Meir Balanes was the son-in-law of Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion. Now Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion was sentenced to death by fire. His wife was sentenced to be killed, and his daughter was sentenced to be thrown into a hostel. Now Bruria was the sister, was Rabbi Meir Balanes's wife. So she comes to her husband, Sadiq, Gadol Ador, a miracle worker, says, you got to save my sister. You have to do something for my sister. Look what they're doing to her. They put her in a hostel. He says, okay, no problem. He dresses up like a Roman nobleman, and he takes a purse full of golden dinarim, and he goes to the entrance of the hostel. And there's the Roman guard there, and he starts talking to the Roman guard, and he says, look, I want to take this lady, and I have a bag full of golden dinarim. So the Roman guard was looking at the golden coins. He says, yeah, but if I take your golden coins and I let her out, she's a high profile hostage, so to speak, hostage. The Romans are going to realize that the daughter of Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion has been let out, and then they're going to come after me. So he says, take half the golden coins for you and half the golden coins to bribe the Roman government. And he says, yeah, but what if that doesn't work? What after a while they want more? So then he tells him the famous line. What does he tell him? He says, if that doesn't work and they come after you, even after you give them the golden coins, say, Aneni Eloka de Meir Aneni, and you will be saved. So the Roman guard looks at him. I wasn't born yesterday. How can you guarantee me that this is going to work? He says, no problem. At that time, there were these roaming dogs, these vicious dogs that used to kill people. Maybe they were pit bulls. Rabbi Meir Balanes took a clump of sand and he threw them at the dogs. And the dogs came to attack them. They were going to tear them apart. Rabbi Meir Balanes said, Elokad de Meir Aneni, and they were saved. They were saved. So now the Roman guard was convinced. He gave him his sister-in-law, and he took the bag full of golden dinarim. So like the guard projected, eventually the Roman government found out what happened, and it wasn't enough the bribes that he gave them. So they took this guard and they were ready to hang him. And as they were about to hang him, what did the guard say? Aneni lakad de meir aneni, and he was saved. And he was saved. So that's where we see the power of Aneni lakad de meir aneni. There's a major question on this Gemara. It's a great Gemara, beautiful, beautiful story. Certainly all Sephardic people can really connect with this. Aneni lekad meir aneni. Never tell a Moroccan that Rabbi Meir Balanes is not from Morocco. Never tell a Moroccan that. I'm Moroccan, I can make fun. So even though the rabbi thinks I'm Italian, I'm really Moroccan. So there's a major question on this. The question is that we know in the lifetime of a person, God does not associate his name with. What does it say by Abraham? It says, Elokei Abraham upachad Yitzchak. Why Elokei Abraham upachad Yitzchak? Because until a person dies, we don't know for sure that a person is going to be a tzaddik. We don't know that a person is not going to go off the derech. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu only attaches his name to a person after they die. Elokei Avraham. After Yitzchak passed away, became Elokei Yitzchak. After Yaakov passed away, became Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. But in their lifetime, God doesn't attach his name to a person. The question is, how could Rabbi Meir Balanes tell this Roman nobleman, don't worry, just say Elakad de Meir Aneni. We don't attach God's name to a person until after they pass away. So this doesn't make sense. What's Rabbi Meir saying? And we saw that it worked though. It worked. So how do we understand this Gemara? So the Maharsha gives two answers. The first answer is no. He wasn't saying Elaka de Meir Bal Hanes. Elaka, the God who illuminates the world. Elakad de Meir, the God who illuminates the world, who illuminates everyone who dwells in the world, let him be the one to save me. That's what Rabbi Meir Balanes meant. He did not mean himself. And the Maharsha says, according to the second answer, well, what did he mean? Elakad de Meir lanu b'malchut Yavan hakodemet benes hanerot shel Chanukah. Elakad de Meir, the God who illuminated Klal Yisrael with the nerot Chanukah. Not Elakad de Meir Balanes, Elakah who illuminated the world with the miracle of the Nerot Chanukah. That's what Rabbi Meir Balanes was saying. The God who brought the miracles, meaning if a person needs a miracle right now, you bring that spiritual energy, Elakah de Meir lanu b'malchut Yavan hakodemet benes hanerot shel Chanukah. That's what Rabbi Meir Balanes said. But according to that, according to the second answer of the Maharsha, that it's referring to the illumination, to this that God illuminated the world through the Nerot Chanukah, the miracle of the Nerot Chanukah, it shouldn't say Elakad de Meir Aneni, Elakad de Heir Aneni, the God who illuminated the world with the Nerot Chanukah in the past. It's not happening now. For those of you who speak Hebrew. Oh, so that's right. So that's the answer. But it should be, we got to build it up. We have to build it up. We have to make a little dramatic. People are falling asleep. We have to make a little, we have to bring some drama into it. So it should say, if this is what it means, like the Maharsha says, it should say, Elaka deheir aneni, the God who illuminated the world with Nerot Chanukah in the past, not Elaka demeir, that's illuminating the world with the Nerot Chanukah. So what do we see from here, like you said, is that the Nerot Chanukah is not a one-time miracle. The Nerot Chanukah is a constant, that spiritual energy is coming into the world each year. And comes the time of Chanukah, you can tap into it. And what all are we talking about? When we're talking about all, when we say the Nerot Chanukah, you can tap into this all, to this light. By the way, this is more for men, but I'll share with ladies that there is a concept that for men and women, once again, it's more of a concept for men, is that whatever we see affects us. You should always be careful what you look at. Certainly men, but even women, always be careful what you look like. For example, the face of a Rasha. Do we look at the face of a Rasha? We don't look at the face of a Rasha. It's a general rule that a person should be careful, and especially men when it comes to modesty by women. What's the antidote? What happens if throughout the year, man or woman, I saw things that I shouldn't have seen, I looked at things that I shouldn't have looked? So one of the segulot of the Nerot Chanukah is they flush out the eyes. If you saw something throughout the year, there's an inyan, there's a concept to sit. Once again, I'm going to say this, it's more by men than by women, to sit by the Nerot Chanukah and just stare at them. They're a form of refu'ah. They flush out the eyes from anything that you shouldn't have seen that year, from anything negative, the face of a Rasha. If a man saw an immodest woman, stare at the Nerot Chanukah. The aura of the Nerot Chanukah are so powerful, they flush out the eyes. They get it out of the system. Just stare at the Nerot Chanukah for the first half, at least for the first half an hour. By the way, if you're
stare for half an hour, but 10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes. I saw. They said if you pay attention, if you can look at the light and focus only at the flame, then you see one of the angels coming up. Like you see the Baba Sali, you see the Rabbanim, you see them. אני ראיתי ממש, אמרו לי, עשיתי ניסיון, זה קשה, אבל עמדתי והסתכלתי בעיניים שלי ואסוך להזיז אותה, את מנסה להסתכל, ואת רואה כמו בחור זקן כזה, עומד לך ממול הזה. את ממש רואה אותה, לא, את רואה שממש עולה כזה, את רואה את ממש עולה בפליים.
Let's further elucidate on this. When you go to a tzaddik, she's bringing up the tzaddikim, so let's go with what she's saying. How is it that a tzaddik, let's break it down. When a tzaddik can see what we can't see, the nashim tzadkaniyot, when the tzaddikim can see what we can't see, they can tell you about your life, they can give you hadracha, they can give you direction. Where do they get this koach from? So it's very simple. It's actually quite simple. We're talking about Nerot Chanukah, this or. What's the or of the Nerot Chanukah? It's the Or Haganuz. What's the Or Haganuz that we always talk about by Chanukah? The primordial light. What's the primordial light? That the first light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with was a very powerful light. Adam HaRishon, it lasted from when Adam HaRishon was created until Motzei Shabbat, it lasted for 36 hours. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, realized that this Or Haganuz was so powerful, but not everybody would be married. There would be tzaddikim, there would be reshaim. So he took the Or Haganuz and he hid it. And who are the only ones that can benefit from it, that can access it? That's the tzaddikim, and you could access it through the Torah. How many volumes are there in the Gemara? 36 volumes. Why 36 volumes? The 36 hours of the Or HaGanuz, the 36 hours of this primordial light that was in the world, that God took it in and put it away. So a person who's able to learn Torah, a person who dedicates himself to learning Torah, he's able to access this light. What was so special about this light? Adam HaRishon could see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. What can the tzaddikim do? They can see things that we can't see. How can they see things that we can't see? They're illuminated with this Or HaGanuz, with this primordial light that was created at the beginning of creation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it away, but He also put it into the Torah. So through studying Torah, you're able to access this light, and it's able to illuminate your vision, so to speak. Famous story, Baba Meir Balanes. This is a very famous story, that there was a boy who was kidnapped in London. His parents came to Baba Meir Balanes in Ashdod. Baba Meir Balanes had never been in London. He took a piece of paper. He drew the streets of London. He drew the neighborhood of London. He pointed. He said, "Your son is here. Go get your son and move to Eretz Yisrael. Go get your son." Famous story. This is where your son is. Go get him, and then move to Eretz Yisrael. How did he know what was going on in London? This is the Or HaGanuz. The tzaddikim are able to access the Or HaGanuz. You know when we're able to access the Or HaGanuz? This is one of the segulot I want to talk about. On Chanukah, we can access the Or HaGanuz. The tzaddikim, the chachamim can access it all year around. We can access it in these 8 days. In these 8 days, when you light the Nerot Chanukah, especially the first half an hour, you now have access to that primordial light that was so precious, so illuminating, that not everyone could be zocheh to, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to hide it, and only the tzaddikim and the Lomdei Torah have access to it. On Chanukah, everyone has access to it. Everyone can tap into the light, to that light. That light can illuminate everybody's world. That light brings with it Yeshuot. We're getting into that. We're gonna finish very soon. Every night when a person prays, it says that one of the segulot is to pray the first half an hour. Every night they say there's 36 malachim that are carrying your tefillot, that are carrying your bakashot to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are 36 malachim standing there, ready to take your bakashot. So the main focus now, when we're talking about segulot, is that we can access this Or HaGanuz. We can access this Or HaGanuz on Chanukah when you light it. That primordial light that God hid away after the first 36 hours from when Adam HaRishon was created comes back into the world in this time, and you can access it when you light the Nerot Chanukah. Another segula is this is I'm assuming many people know this, but if you don't, is to say the Mizmor 91 Tzadik Aleph. Which Mizmor is it? Yoshev Beseter Alyon, and then the pasuk Vehi Noam. To say that every single night when you light the Nerot Chanukah, say that every single night. And while in general Chanukah is very mesugal for a lot of things, it's especially mesugal for parnasah, for people who can't have children, and for refuah. Like we said, that this light literally it flushes out the eyes. It flushes out the eyes. You get that? I don't need my optometrist for 8 days. I look at the Nerot Chanukah. It flushes out the lights. Once again, this is more for men, but men and women, whatever a person sees during the year, comes Chanukah, you can heal it. Person can literally heal it spiritually and physically with the Nerot Chanukah. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow night, Thursday night, is the first night. Let's try to light the Nerot Chanukah. You can light it with just about anything. Try to light it with oil. We want to really get that Or HaGanuz. Try to light it with oil. And Bezrat Hashem, that this Chanukah should be a time of Nisim, the Niflaot, the Yeshuot. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.